Alright, so today we're going to be testing out our inverter. So we're not quite ready to install it in the truck, but Amazon's gonna end the return period pretty soon, so I don't even have my batteries yet that run the generator or the inverter. So I've got my starter batteries. I know these aren't the right batteries, but I have to test this thing before Amazon says we can't return it anymore. So this is the Ames Power 4,000 watt pure sine wave inverter with split phase, which means that it has either 120 or 240 volts output, which we need to run the welder. And it's a pure sine wave inverter, which means the sine wave is a curve, kind of like what you see on the box. Well, no, not kind of, just like you see on the box. A nice smooth curve, as opposed to a modified sine wave inverter, which is very blocky. Or even sometimes they try to be smooth and then they block on the top and then smooth. So you want to avoid those because they clip the ends of the sine wave, and it's very harsh on your electronic components. It makes them generate a lot of heat, makes them not really run very efficient. But they're easier to make, and because they're easier to make, they're cheaper. So they're enticing, but just don't do it. Stick with a pure sine wave inverter from a reputable company like Ames Power. This thing is heavy. This is my first time getting out of the packaging. I'm going to get you in close and so you can see. This is the back side of the inverter, the port where your power comes out. We've got, like I said, it's split phase 120/240, so it also has a charger on it. So you've got ground right here, and then you've got the input 240 volts so that you can charge the batteries if you're using this as a charger. Then you got the output, neutral, hot 1, hot 2. You supply your own ground to frame, so you would ground this to the frame of your vehicle, and there you go. Here's your completed circuit: hot, neutral, and ground. 2 hots, neutral, and a ground, so it's a completed 240 circuit. So there's the backside there, all the connections that you can use for that, plus some circuit breakers up top just in case, and a fan cooled everything off. On the front side of this inverter, you've got your positive, negative battery connections, and then if you want to use this inverter, you can set it up to actually turn on a remote generator. If the battery's low, that's the connection for that, and it's all in the book. You've got a sensor, temperature sensor, to turn it to stop charging once the batteries get to a certain temperature to keep you from damaging your batteries. There's a connector for that. Different ports for different screen options, and another grounding spot. I apologize if it's really windy out here. I kind of picked the worst day to do this, but I really gotta film this unboxing and get this thing hooked up before time runs out. Oh, and these dip switches on the side, it says right on the packaging that you can control a lot of the functions of the inverter through these switches. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe we'll use them, maybe we won't. Up here on top, we've got a little bit of basic information: on, off, battery if you're plugged in, if you're not plugged in, and if the battery's in a fault state. A little bit more information. Still not a whole lot here. Pretty much just telling you what it's doing, but not a whole lot of information. And then get a wide shot of this is what the actual inverter looks like. On this side, as well as the other side, you've just got some ventilation fans. Or ventilation ports. One last thing we did get with this inverter too, it didn't come with it, we bought it separate, is this little LCD panel or LED panel. I'm not sure which one it is, but it'll it's probably LCD, but it'll give a lot of more information than you do with these little bars of light right here. You'll get a lot more with these bars of light on this screen. And then of course the cable to attach it, and we'll be testing all of that as well. But for now, I need to go to the store and get some kind of a cable to go from that to that. I'll be back with you guys shortly.
Here is the terminals can be made, and they're attached to the inverter, and we're gonna test it today. So a lot of reviews have said that it doesn't put out enough power, and some reviews have said that it does just fine. So we need to test this before it's too late to return it.
A lot of this is temporary, so I don't want to show too much of it, but pretty much we've got our starter batteries out the truck, got the inverter hooked up, got all of our different things that we're going to plug into the inverter hooked up. We'll go more in depth on our whole system when we install it permanently. But for now, just got to know that things are hooked up, and we're about to plug in the inverter to power for the first time. Just double checking everything to make sure it's how I want it before I energize and fry something. Make sure there's a fuse in here. Yes, fuse is in here. Fuse is good. Okay. So very first thing you want to plug in is the positive. Let's get this a little closer. Positive goes in. And when you connect the circuit on the negative, you sometimes get a spark. The bigger the inverter, the bigger the spark. This is a very large inverter, actually one of the biggest that I've messed with. I don't know how big that spark is going to be.
And what's the little red lead for?
This red lead right here goes to our battery shunt. It's supposed to monitor our battery voltage. And then this, I'll get over here. This shunt right here says how much power is being drawn through the system, how much power is being drawn from the batteries. And then we've got a readout that should give us some information on the inverter itself. And then this is the readout for that battery shunt, so it should give us the battery voltage and current draw. Yeah, so let's charge it up. Right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab some gloves because I do not know how big that is gonna be. It could be uneventful. It could be a decent size.
Hopefully not as big as that one time the hot tub was trying to blow.
Oh yeah, that was a bit too big. All right. Inverter is turned off. I'm gonna look away. I'm just gonna touch it real quick. Huh,
Okay.
nothing. Okay, perfect. I like that. When I turn this on, we should get something. Look at that. Input voltage, inverter is running. There is no input voltage coming into the inverter, outputting 227 at 60 hertz. We've got quite a bit of things here. We have 2 heat guns. We have an air compressor, small one, albeit. And then we've got our big wood lathe all hooked up to this. And it should be able to power all of these things. We did the math and it's about 3,500 watts. Hopefully we can get all this stuff running.
Oh, it's on. That's good.
Just turn this on. Okay, that's making heat. Go ahead and turn on the lathe. Right now it's at a state of 71%, but while that lathe was running, it went up to 96%.
Wow.
And the battery voltage dropped down to 10 volts.
Oh,
So
no.
those batteries can't push this inverter nearly as good as it, well, it's fine really, because those are starting batteries, those aren't running batteries. But it ran 3,600 watts, and it's a 4,000 watt inverter. It'll let you run up to 300% of the power, and we are at 96. Oh, I still got the heat guns on. The waveform got a little shaky. We'll need to probably put like a UPS or something in there. That's an uninterrupted power supply. I'll have to put something like that in there to maybe for the computers if we want to run the welder. I don't see us drawing nearly this much power on a given basis. Like, really, I don't think I've plugged 2 heat guns into the same circuit in the house. The air compressor running too. We were actually probably getting pretty close to the overload for that outlet, let alone the overload for the inverter. I couldn't run it nearly long enough to let things get hot and see if it was going to over temp, because my batteries can't take it, but we know at least we didn't get a dud, and it can output at least 3,600 watts for at least 5 minutes or so. Well, maybe 2. Yeah. So now I know everything works, I can go ahead and put in the electrical panel. That's what this video is about anyway. I said in the review of this MIG welder that I would never use this little thing here. But I let somebody use my hoods at the makerspace because they had a project that they were working on, and I haven't went and picked them up so I could use them again. So now here I am, 11 o'clock at night, not wanting to drive across town. I'm going to use this little face shield thing. I'm just testing the inverter so it doesn't have to be a perfectly good weld. I just need to see if they can keep the machine running. So we got the Lotus CT520D, the same thing that we use to extend the frame on the truck. If you haven't seen that video, we'll leave a link, probably an annotation card or something like that, where we stretch the whole frame on the truck out. I bought this welder to do that, and now it's going to go with this on the trip, so I got to make sure the inverter can run it. So I've got a plug here. It's a 30 amp plug that I kind of modified to, or it's a 50 amp plug that I modified to only run on 30 amps, and we're going to plug this into the welder, or to the inverter, and see if it can keep it turned on, at least long enough to put some kind of bead down. Where's my glove? I only had a left hand glove, didn't I?
Yeah.
I'm right-handed.
Just wear it backwards.
I might have to wear my glove backwards. Wow. Okay. This is like the jankiest setup here.
Are you gonna plug the waveform in?
No, I can't.
Heck.
Here we go. Power on. Ooh. I'll do 100 amp output. Don't look at this. You don't want to look at this. It's too bright.
That's your eyes. We're gonna weld to test the inverter.
Okay, go.
Nah, don't do that. That's bad.
I want to see.
I wish I had another hood.
Huh? No, I want to see how bright it gets.
It's bright.
extra
If you
bright.
face the door, you'll see how bright it is.
Okay, go.
Okay, watch your eyes.
Oh.
You know, this little hood is not that bad. I'm not sure how much amperage we drew, but it did something. Usually you can't weld on battery.
Yeah.
People don't usually do that.